Hi, everybody. It's Jessica Stone at Stansberry Research, and I've got Kim Iskyan, our international editor, on the line. And Kim, you have been watching the food space very closely. Food prices are going up around the world, and yet we have seen so much food be thrown away that it's like it's cognitive dissonance. It's not making sense in my head. What's going on?
Well, Jessica, what's going on is that there was a glut of a lot of food for a while, just a few months ago. And a lot of that was due to supply chain issues. But what I think we're going to see in coming months is really a lot of food prices going up. And we're already starting to see that. We're going to see that really accelerate. And there are a number of reasons for that. One of them is that a lot of the labor that works the fields, that labor isn't going to be able to get to the fields. Whether we're talking about migrant workers from Ukraine and from Poland going to the UK, whether we're talking about farmhands from Mexico going to the US, they're not going to be able to go there. A lot of them who are able to go there, they might get sick. So what happens is a lot of that produce just isn't picked, it goes to waste. And whatever is picked is going to be more expensive. So that's a really big reason we're going to see prices going up. And another one is I just mentioned is that supply chains aren't working as well as they used to. And a lot of companies around the world, everything from manufacturing to tech, as well as to agriculture, is going to sit back and think, wait a second, supply chains and all this just-in-time stuff, it is very brittle. It doesn't work. And it just takes a few things to go wrong. And all of a sudden we have farmers pouring milk in lagoons just because they can't do anything else with it. So those are two really big reasons.
I want to bring up this issue of food nationalism. That's something you're also writing about, which I think we've most recently seen in the case of Tyson's Food having a few episodes of COVID-19 at one of their processing plants. And China is now screening and blocking, in some cases, the chicken they get from the United States. There has been, and we've talked about this sort of emphasis on local supply chains. Is that actually problematic because it limits the amount of food and thus makes the food more expensive coming into the US?
We've seen food nationalism in different ways. One of them is at the height of the concerns about the pandemic, is that some countries just said, you know what, whatever we produce, we're keeping it home. So Vietnam is one of the world's biggest rice producers. They said, we're not exporting any rice. That's a huge problem for everybody else, and that pushes prices up. And now that that's kind of in play, that could well happen next time. And then COVID-19 is also used as a method it's kind of like a backdoor way of non-tariff barriers, right? Because with the US-China trade war, we've seen a lot of tariff barriers and a lot of talk about that. But then if a country can say, I don't really trust your produce because you have a lot of coronavirus going on, well, all of a sudden we have a big problem for the buyer, a big problem for the seller, and a big problem for prices. And I think we could see a lot more of the sort of Tyson's episodes that we've seen already.
Yeah, and I referred earlier to a Wall Street Journal article that shows that since April, we've actually seen the biggest increases in prices year over year in meat and poultry. So that makes sense in that context. I know that some countries have food stockpiles, kind of like the United States has the petroleum stockpile. I just got to ask if you happen to know, does the United States have reserves of any kind of food to feed its people?
The US does have some reserves. It has, for example, wheat reserves. It has other reserves, and those can be tapped. But I think that does in part rely on supply chains working, because you still have to get it from one place to another. And you don't want to rely on that too heavily.
Let me ask you about how to trade this trend.
What I would look at would really be at some of the seed producers, some of the big agricultural companies, and there are a few ETFs that really focus on those. One of them has the ticker VEGI.
That's easy to remember.
That is more fertilizer producer heavy, has the ticker SOIL. And a third one, which is also quite relevant, has the ticker MOO, MOO. And all of those, they're different mixes of agricultural companies, of fertilizer companies, of seed producers. I think that over the longer term, these companies will be some of the biggest beneficiaries of these trends. And also, you got to remember that on top of the sort of short to medium term price pressures, over the next 30 years, estimates suggest that we'll need 50% more food because the planet is still adding more people. And as people grow wealthier, as societies grow wealthier, they want things like more beef, which is incredibly land and agriculture intensive. So there's that sort of macro pressure as well. So these are really some strong long-term investments to make.
All right, Kim Iskyan there, our international editor. We always like catching up with you, and we will continue to follow you around the world. And if you would like to see much more content like this, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter. That's all for now. Thanks for watching.